Welcome back to the story behind the book, my YouTube channel for the Loving Lions book. This guy right here. We are on part 2 of chapter 1, which is Afraid to Let Go. And where we left off was talking about how letting go and finally leaning into your recovery allows you to have faith that things could be different, right? Differentiating between the spirituality and the religious that everybody thinks of when we talk about the 12 steps and things like that. But I'm going to continue reading through the book and finish this chapter. I think the fear of letting go is, again, it's why I started off with this in the book, is that it is just such a visceral response when people come in and say, you need to give up that thing. I'm going to revisit the last paragraph from our previous episode. It says, until you actually let go, then it starts to work. Once you let go, it gets clearer and it feels good to let go. Meaning that it just, once the dominoes start to fall and you start to let go of your death grip on everything that's happening and all of the things you're trying to control in your life, once you finally start to let go, letting go of the next thing and the next thing and the next thing just gets easier. Once you let go, a higher power seems more and more likely, and faith becomes easier. And again, in my position here, what I'm talking about is the faith that things will get better. Once you let go, anything can happen. Now, our world gets real small while we're struggling with addiction. We can only see the possibilities within the container of our addiction, right? So we can only see the possibilities based on our current income, our current job opportunities, our limitations, probation, parole, being stuck in the house, not having a license. So our faith that anything could be different and other than what it is today, it's gone. And so when I said, once you let go, anything can happen. Once you let go and you stop trying to control that small world that you're living in, everything is a discussion. Everything is an option. I worked with a gentleman who was, I think he was 65 years old. He was on Suboxone. He was struggling in massive debt. And when I first met him, he was just very negative. I talked to him about his future, and he would present these terminally unique scenarios, like everything's so bad and unfixable, my life could never change. And to this day, every year, he sends me a message on Facebook or wherever and just reminds me that he's doing well and he's climbed out of that hole, and just, it's never too late, right? It's just always an option. And once you start letting go, everything is possible. So I will continue. I will never forget being told early on in my last attempt to get well, if you are the highest power you can imagine, then you are screwed. If you cannot imagine that somewhere, somehow, there was a bigger plan for you, one that is not decided by you, one created by a higher power, then you are destined to live within this nightmare forever. And this was the first real sponsor I'd ever had, and he was handpicked for me because I'm quite a difficult case myself, and I was pretty arrogant and I was pretty full of myself. And he came in and gave me this perspective, right? I felt like everything needed to be guided by me, directed by me, or controlled by me in order for things to work out. And what I was having trouble with was letting go of the wheel while things were still out of control. And what he gave me was the strength to just be patient, to let time pass, to not try to step into every situation head first and like I've got to fix everything right in that moment. And so basically it says this person was basically telling me if I was as good as it gets, then there was no hope. My best efforts had me sitting there in the same place I had been countless times before, trying to stop myself from repeating the same mistakes. Now listen to that. My best efforts had me sitting there in the same place I had been countless times before. My best efforts. Up to that point, I actually believe I had given my best effort to do it my way. I had never given my best effort to the recovery process, but I had given my best effort to trying to have my cake and eat it too. I wasn't quite giving up the lifestyle, but I was giving up the drugs. I would give up this drug or that drug. And so there was an effort made, my best effort given the circumstances. However, I had not ever put my best effort into truly getting well. And my best efforts had me sitting in the same place I had been countless times was such a revelation when it was explained to me. And so, again, my best efforts had failed me once again. This person was right. I sucked at getting well on my own. I was going to need some help. I did suck at getting well. I was good at a lot of other things. I think my family and I were both convinced that because of how capable I was in other areas of my life, how easy it was for me to start a business or run a business or come up with money or a place to stay, that collectively we all believed I should be capable of doing this if I just put my mind to it. If I just committed, gave up drugs and alcohol, and did normal stuff, that we were all convinced, myself included, that I should be able to do it, and we were all frustrated that I couldn't. And this moment here that I had with this person, it was a really important turning point for me, which was that in hindsight, in reflection, when I was actually able to sit down and look at myself, the realization that I just wasn't good at this was easy to see. I don't care how, quote, successful I thought I had been at different points, but if you quit smoking 3 times a week, you've never quit smoking. And so he kept pointing out that, yeah, you've quit, but you've never quit. Yeah, you stopped, but you never stopped. And so it was just an interesting revelation when I had that with him. And the chapter continues. I had to let go. I had to let go of so much. I had to let go of the idea that I knew best what I needed to do. I had to let go of the idea that I could do this my own way without following the guidelines of a recovery process. There was some special, magical recovery process that fit my very unique situation, and that what worked for so many millions of people in generations before mine wouldn't work for me because I was so special and so different. I had to let go of the idea that I was special and unique, and that my recovery would somehow need to be tailored to fit my special and unique set of circumstances. I had to let go of the idea that I was in control of my life. And that was a delusion, because I was out there every single day hustling. I was in charge of how the day went. I was in charge of how I felt. I was manipulating and controlling people in my life. So I felt like God. I felt like I was running the show. And I truly did believe that I had control over my own life, and that it was just a matter of time that I needed, or there were circumstances I needed to get past, and then I'd finally be able to do it. I just need this job. If I can just get through this week or this weekend, everything's going to be fine. I just need to come up with this money to pay this person back, and so on and so forth. It was endless. I had to let go of a lot. Nothing was as difficult as letting go of my own adopted belief system. I had lived by a different moral code than the rest of the world for a long time. I had become a man while in state prison at age 19 and learned from other convicts about the rules of life. I had developed most of my life skills while lying, cheating, and manipulating my way through life. And for those of you that have never experienced it, prison, the streets, drug dealing, whatever version you've lived, they all come with a different set of rules. And I've referenced it in the past with families. I call it the good guy theory, or the good person theory, depending on what gender you're talking about here. But for me, we'd be sitting around in jail playing cards, just a few friends of mine sitting there with our feet up on a lockbox playing spades or whist or whatever, or hearts. And we'd be reminiscing about other inmates, other convicts that we knew and where they were today. Just catching up. We'll be sitting there playing cards. Be like, anyone heard from Bobby? Oh, yeah, he's over at this facility. Got a kidnapping charge and trafficking. And like, yeah, Bobby's a good dude. And Bobby was a good dude because he was solid. He didn't rat. He didn't steal from other convicts or inmates. He didn't touch any babies or women. That was it. Those are like the 3 qualifiers. And as long as you don't hit those 3, you're a good dude. And so it was this good guy theory of we lived by a different code, determining what good people in our life were. And so letting go of that and acknowledging that just because they didn't break that code didn't mean they were good people in my life, it was challenging, especially after years of living like that. I had become a taker. As an addict, I was a taker, and I viewed the world differently than most. I believed that I was owed something. I believed that if I could take it, then it should be taken. I'll give you a simple example of how a taker thinks. Let's say that you were in front of me at a checkout line in a store, and as you reached for your wallet or your purse, a $20 bill falls on the floor. Being the taker that I was, I would drop something of mine and pick them both up. I would keep your money and pretend that you did not drop it. I would take the win, and I'd feel just fine about it. Your loss equals my gain, plain and simple. And that mentality is what had me driving around town, stealing tip jars from Dunkin' Donuts, trying to rob cars, people, just the most ridiculous stuff, which was if I could get away with it, that's on them, not me. They should be better at hiding it, or they should do this. It was just such a twisted way of looking at the world. I was always on the lookout for ways to get over on someone. In almost every interaction, I was constantly assessing what I would get out of it. Because of this, I lived a very strategic life, one where I tracked very closely what I owed people and what they owed me. It was all about hustling to survive. What that paragraph speaks to is the transactional relationships that I had with everyone in my life. From my parents, I would provide them with just enough love and reinforcement or guilt and shame, whatever the tools I needed to give, I would provide them. And the transaction was that I would get something for it. A place to stay, some money in my pocket, a little bit of pity, whatever it was that I was seeking out, it was very transactional. Early on, my hustle was my family. Obviously, we go to the closest and lowest hanging fruit. I was a beginner, and my skills were still weak. But I was able to sharpen them against my parents and other family members. I began to get better at surviving. In fact, when I was asked to leave my mother's house by the Beverly Police Department around the age of 17, I was able to stay out on the street and find a way to survive without my family for years. And that's not ego stating that. That is just a matter of fact that those skills, as we hone them and develop them, we become more and more capable, right? We become better liars. We become more connected with the street and our cohorts and the people we're using with. We become more connected with them, and we end up with this vast network of resources that we can rely on. And we become more and more disconnected with our family and our friends as a result. And so really what that speaks to is just how disconnected I was from my family by the time I got kicked out. These skills that I had developed over the years helped me to survive. I was a taker. I stole whatever I could. I manipulated whomever I could, and I lied whenever it suited me. These were my skills, and this was my way of life. I needed these skills to survive, and I was afraid to let them go. I was afraid to let go of the person I had become and of the reputation I had built amongst my peers, for fear that I would lose everyone and everything that I knew. Everything that made me, I was afraid to let go. And there's a quote here from Drew Gerald that says, You only struggle because you are ready to grow but aren't willing to let go. That struggle lasted for a very long time for me. What I would suggest is that if you are someone who's currently struggling and you're afraid to let go, if you're afraid to walk away from all of the things that feel like they're under control, if you're afraid to walk away from all of the things that give you a sense of peace and ease, there's a better life on the other side.